Yo, 2013 Yukon XL. The Chevy Suburbans and Tahoes and Escalades, they're pretty much all the same with this problem I have. This thing has rear heat and AC in it, and as you can see on the passenger side, on the right side of the frame rail, there's a bunch of lines. There's two coolant lines and there's a high and a low pressure line for your AC. And if I run all the way back here, I put a little bit of refrigerant in it to try to see if I could figure out what's going on with this system. And right there, the smaller line, that's the high pressure hose. It corroded a hole in that line, so it's leaking right there. That looks pretty fancy. Nice corrosion on that clamp right there. I might put a hose clamp around that just to hold it there or something. There's a few different ways you can tackle this job. One is to get a rear AC delete kit. There's one line right here that goes to the rear. And then here's your high side pressure line right there. You just unbolt these and you can put a block off kit in them. You can buy them on Amazon or get them online. I called Napa and asked them about them, and they said they wanted $50 a piece for these caps, which is insane because you can get them online. You can get them for about 20 bucks for both of them. I got one of these things I got off of a car many years ago. It's a compression fitting for the high side hose. I wouldn't recommend using one of these. I took this off because it didn't work. It actually leaked. I think I got this off of a Saturn. I ended up cutting the line and just using a standard flare, and I went to the hardware store and just got a flaring kit, just brass parts, and bolted it all together, and I haven't had a problem. I've probably done about 3 or 4 of those on the old L series Saturns. Option number 3 is this kit I got off of Amazon. I made the guy mail order this stuff. It's a couple of flexible hoses. I've done this with these before. They work just fine. There's metal lines you can buy too that are all solid metal that are actually the factory replacements, and those you do not want to do because you're going to have to unbolt running boards, and some vehicles, depending on what it is, what make it is, you actually have to unbolt the frame and lift the body off the frame a little bit to get them in. So I really like these flexible hoses. The guy wanted rear AC in his car to work, so I'll be putting those in. I got an accumulator for it too. It's a good idea to put an accumulator in the thing because if you ever got a leak in the system, or if you open up the system, there's a desiccant material in here that soaks up all of the moisture in the air. I'm gonna replace this accumulator first. There's just a couple of 13 millimeters on here. Of course, you're going to want to make sure that this system's already discharged with refrigerant. I can actually look to find something to plug off this line just to make sure no air gets in the system. Doesn't really matter too much. Another 13 millimeter here. That should be unbolted from the evaporator. Now I got a funky little zip tie looking thing back here. I want to pull that out. And there's a 10 millimeter on this firewall. I just got a really long extension and a swivel and a deep well on that. Yeah, that stud broke. That didn't come off without a fuss. This should be a 6 millimeter by 1. I'm going to try to get in here with a die. Hopefully I can clean up this thread and be able to use it again. Looks like there's enough threads there I can work with. I should be able to work with that. Found a little something to stick in that evaporator hole for now. I'm going to need this clamp. This is a 10 millimeter. I'll just loosen that up enough to get it off for now. I'll have to tighten this back up when I get it in the truck. Just kind of snug it up a little bit. I'm going to want to know how much refrigerant is in here. Generally, when you just replace an accumulator, you want to add about 1 ounce I put an ounce in here before I put refrigerant in it because I didn't know how bad the leak was, so I might get an ounce out of the thing. I'm just going to drill a hole in it. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the ounce that I put in it, but there might be a little more, so I'm just going to let that drain out and see how much comes out of here. Yeah, it looks like 1 ounce. There's probably no extra oil in it. I just wanted to do that just because you never know. It might have leaked out 3 ounces for all I know. So generally when you do an accumulator, you want to add 1 ounce just for replacement. And if there was a whole bunch that came out of here, more than an ounce, then I would add that amount with it. I have some PEG 46 with dye oil here. Generally, you just got to make an educated best guess. If you got a really small leak in a system where it just kind of peters out a little bit, you want to add 1 ounce. If I'm replacing an accumulator, I want to add 1 ounce. If I have a really big leak where the line just blows out and refrigerant and oil goes all over the place, I want to add about 3 ounces. And to do a rear AC repair, I want to add about 3 ounces to replace those lines. As an educated guess, it's an 11-ounce system, and I'm going to put 4 ounces. So I got basically 3 ounces for a rear line, big leak, and then an extra ounce for an accumulator. It's better to have too much than not enough. That's quite a lot of refrigerant oil. And I'm just going to dump it right in this hole. Oops. And make a mess while I do it. If I would have opened up this other line too, it probably wouldn't have done that to me. And since I got a little bit all over the place, I'll just guess a little more. I'll put this cap back on it for now. I'm going to try to save my nut with a little vice map gas action. Winning! Now I can toss this new accumulator on, take this cap off. There's already an O-ring on here. I'm going to want to take this off and lubricate it. It's some junk that doesn't have any dye in it, so I don't get dye oil all over me. It's 150, but it don't matter. I can stick this in the hole. All these 13mm nuts, I wouldn't torque anything over like probably 12 foot-pounds. They don't need to be that tight. Probably 16 foot-pounds max. Try to get my nut back on here. And amazingly enough, there's enough threads on that. Little 6mm by 1s. These are 8 foot-pounders, usually. Now that I got that bolted back onto the firewall, I can tighten this clamp bolt down. It's kind of hard to get at. Pop this off. Take off my little cap I put on here. Same deal with this new lubricated seal. Same torque on all of these 13mm for all of these lines. I got these nice big zip ties on here, and since I'm a cheap guy and I like nice big zip ties, I got a de-pinning tool here I can use to de-pin this, so I have a nice big fat zip tie. Be saving those. Bonus. It'll make my life a lot easier if I get this inner fender off of here. I got it up in the air, so I don't need to take the tire off. I got a little plastic clippy thing here I need to pull the center out of. Try to get that out without breaking it. Good luck. It's pretty crusted in there. Looks like you could use a little Rust-Oleum on there too. Looks like that's the only plastic clippy looking thing like that. Something missing here. And these just come out kind of just by getting behind them and wiggling them out. Sometimes these plastic things break. Yeah, that one broke. I'll try to get this one out without breaking it. I'll try to be a little more careful. Try a screwdriver and a little needle nose action here. Yeah, that one broke too. Lovely. I got a whole bunch of 7mm. Looks like I got a Phillips on this mud flap, but I don't think I have to take it off. Either my 7mm wore out from 30 years of hard use, or I got rusty screws. Try a different 7mm. Looks like my 7mm wore out. Now I don't want to unbolt anything until the last minute. I'm going to start stringing these lines now. You just got to find the right ends, and I'm just going to fish them through here and try to kind of put them right where, kind of like right where the other ones are, I guess. I think I'll start with the biggest line first. I gotta fish this in here kind of funny. I kind of put it like this and stick it in here like that and kind of horseshoe it through the stuff, and I get kind of lucky. And it runs up the running board kind of, I don't know, I'm just gonna stab it up here, I guess. I'll leave that kind of loose for now. Maybe I'm gonna have to run this little hose the other way because this end's smaller. It'll be easier for me to fish. I'm gonna put it through the top of the running board. Oh yeah, looks like it's gonna fit. Well, I think I got them laid up there good enough. I'm gonna make the connections under the hood first. Kind of hard to differentiate what's who around here. All these hoses and lines and stuff running everywhere around here. But this is the low side pressure hose right here. Give this a wiggle, it'll pop right out. I'm not going to cut this or take it out or anything. I'm just going to leave it sitting right up here so everybody can go, oh, what's that nut for? Oh, what do I do? Oh, end of the world. Oh, I got some O-rings in a bag with miscellaneous parts and stuff. I just put some lubricant on that. They give me some bolts and nuts too. I don't know what the heck I'm going to need those for yet. Maybe nothing. Plug this into the hole here like that. That feels good. And then my high pressure line, it's kind of easy to find in this mess of stuff. It's the smaller line and it's running right down the firewall. This thing's really rusty. I'm going to hit it with some deep creep. Hopefully I won't have a problem getting the thing out. Sometimes these high pressure lines, they like to twist up when you try to take them off. So it's best to use an impact wrench a lot of times because it'll just impact it off without twisting anything. Other than that, a lot of times you got to put a pair of pliers on here, a vice grip to hold it, which looks exactly like what I'm going to have to do. Try to get in here with something to hold this thing down. Just a light clamp should be all it takes. I had to kind of get this battery sensor out of the way. There's a little plastic clippy thing on the battery box holding it in. I don't see any flexible hoses on any of this either. So I'm going to bend this line a little bit. I'm going to try to bend the line on the firewall side and not this side. Just bend that thing out of the way. Doesn't really matter. I don't need it anymore. And try to find this line. Looks like I'm gonna have an O-ring. Try to get that off. O-ring. I got 2 of those in my bag. Put a little lubricant on that. Put that back on. And I can stab this one in the hole. So they didn't give me a stud for this, but they gave me a box of bolts with some nuts. I guess I'm going to use that. Put a little vice grip action on it to get a little tighter. Feels good. Put the silly little battery thingy majiggy back on. There, I got all that stuff. Now I have the evaporator on the rear to deal with. Give the big line a little wiggle. And that stuff comes out. I can just leave that stuff hang there too. Pull the caps off of these. I got my new lubricated seals. Stick that one up there. This one's kind of giving me a fuss. Suppose it would be easier to just cut these old lines to get them out of the way, but I'm not doing it. You don't want to force these lines either. You want to make sure they go up there nice and square. They just kind of float up there. That looks good. I'm working with that. I used all the zip ties. I don't know, I put one up here and one there. Basically, you just want to put them in some good places to make sure the lines don't wiggle around or rub on anything. Like there's a rub point right here. I might want to put another zip tie on there. But yeah, I got them like right up next to the running board brackets because those are kind of sharp. And I don't know, put one up here on the corner. Everything going up there seems okay. So yeah, you just zip tie it down, just use your own discretion, you know, try to make it nice. Now I can put this fender back on somehow. If you really want to get anal about torque specs, I'd say do these little 7mm at about 2 foot-pounds. Now I have a vacuum sucking machine. Apparently you can rent these things from like parts stores and stuff. I'm going to want to go in the cold side. That's on your accumulator. There's a manifold that you can use for these, but I don't. I made this apparatus so I don't have to keep plugging it into my AC manifold and wasting all my refrigerant. So I can just plug that in here. I put a ball valve on this thing. I've used engine vacuum before too when I was cheap and poor, but I don't have to do that anymore. I put a ball valve on this thing so I can just suck it down. It should get down to about 30 inches of vacuum. And I'm going to want to run that for about a half an hour just to get good solid vacuum on it. Well, I let it run on vacuum for about a half an hour and I let it sit for about 40 minutes and it hasn't gone down at all. So that vacuum's holding good. So I'm going to put some refrigerant in this thing and hope for the best. As you can see, I turned my ball valve off after I got done vacuuming it. I can just unplug this. I have a big 30-pound tank. You can use the small cans if you want. I put it on a scale too so I know how much weight I'm using. It's easy with the little cans. You don't need a scale. And then an AC manifold. I'm going to plug this junk in. I got the high side pressure hose here. The little line is always the high side pressure, and the big line is always the low side pressure. So that's the accumulator on this. Red is high for hot. And then blue is low for cold. Just like so. If you got them cheesy little cans, you're just going to use the low side. I don't know if you can read that or not, but I'm going to open up this cold side line and I'm going to add 48 ounces. So if it doesn't want to take the full 3 pounds of refrigerant in your little cans or whatever you're doing, all you got to do is just run the car, turn your AC on high, and then it'll suck it in the cold side. Well, right now I'm just going to run the car though and see what I got. I let it run for a good 5 minutes just to make sure everything's cycled really good and all the oil and the refrigerant is circulated in the system really nice. These are the pressures I got. 30 and, I don't know, 170, 200. The fan's coming on, it's working. It's about 69 degrees outside with 43% relative humidity. The higher the humidity, the higher the pressures and the higher the temperatures. So being that it's so cool and there's such low humidity, these are the pressures that I'm getting. If it was hotter and the humidity was higher, I'm sure it would be a higher pressure. So I'm going to call this a good working system. I just need to unscrew these and take these off. Put the caps on. And call it a fix. Okay, bye.